Gentlemen, what does the future hold for the floating petri dish that is Carnival Cruise? Well, we're going to listen to the CEO. We're going to look into the company and maybe see what the time horizon is for the survival and the turnaround for this once upon a time incredible Dividend stock. Last night, there was emergency helicopters flying over our house on an hourly basis. We're living in some really unprecedented times, and I look so forward to breaking this down for you. So, ladies, gentlemen, let's jump right in.
Drop it.
Welcome back, my passive income investors. I like to these unprecedented times, and how the heck is Carnival Cruise dealing with this? So we're going to listen to the CEO. We're going to look into their books. I'm going to give you my personal opinion from an outsider looking in, because so many of you investors, especially dividend investors, have been keeping this stock on the back burner of your minds. But hopefully I'm going to give you some clarity on whether you should be buying this or not. But first thing we're going to do is look at this company from a customer's standpoint here, guys. And when I scroll on over onto the Carnival Cruise website, the first thing I was looking for is where are the updates on the CV. And the only thing they have is this very little thing up here that says health and sailing updates. That sounds so calming and relaxing, because when we scroll on over to the Delta Airlines, alert and advisors, CV travel updates, like the first thing you see at the top of the page. Disney, right in your face, don't come here. We're closed, ladies and gents. Looking at Uber's offering resources right at the top of their page. Even the Bank of Nova Scotia, my personal bank, has it right at the very top, very black and bold. First thing you're going to see logging into your banking. But no. Carnival Cruise really needs to mitigate themselves away from the bad headlines they've been experiencing. And if you click on the health and sailing updates, they offer all the regular jargon about hand sanitizer. Heck, if you go into the ship cleaning standards, they're like, guess what, guys? We're sanitizing everything. The bars, we're sanitizing the pools. Heck, we're sanitizing the golfing little mini putt equipment as well, which is expected. But again, these things are like floating petri dishes, and this is an airborne disease. So it's nice that they're kind of going above and beyond, but really hiding it from the front page of their website. And heck, if we wanted to book a cruise, well, the problem is they've canceled cruises all the way up till the end of June, which is going to be very questionable, might I say. But if we continue forward, you're going to notice that they don't offer any information throughout this whole booking process. So if you were oblivious, maybe an older person, not to be rude, but maybe you'd overlook this, and they're really not going to mention a single thing about the CV anywhere when you're going through the booking process. And in fact, the only enlightening news about getting this booking done, let me scroll through this so you guys can see what's going on here. So once you've continued scrolling through this intense selection process and you finally got your way at the very bottom here, the first thing you're going to notice is, oh, look, add vacation protection for an average of $109 per person. Cancellation fee waiver program, Carnival travel insurance program, and heck yes, we're going to want that. But they don't mention that you probably should get it, because booking anything toward the end of June right now could be a disaster for your travel plans. And our government has advised us that, look, we're still going to have to mitigate into this very slowly, because they're saying we're going to see some ups and downs throughout the rest of the year. Even though we might peter off the curve, we still have to be careful not to cause second winds. And like, the news isn't getting real better here, guys. We're just trying to get through the heat of the moment. So when you're booking a cruise and going into this knowing that there's a good chance that this cruise is going to be canceled, I'm just shocked at how much they're hiding this on here, guys. You can't find anything when you're going through the booking process. And as soon as you hit any booking, you completely lose the links. It doesn't matter what part of the sites you go on, say Delta or Disney. You can click just about anything, and this tag at the top is always going to be there. So Carnival Cruise is really trying to separate themselves and bring in any sales they can. This is just a company that wants your money here, guys, and they're going to do everything they can to stay afloat, including selling your shares. Did you like that? Staying afloat, selling your shares. What do I mean by that? Well, taking a look at Carnival Cruise stock, guys, we all saw the massive drop-off that happened and the yield that is just not going to be sustainable, because there's no way they're paying their dividend yield. And seeing the stock drop to a $9.2 billion market cap with a PE ratio of 4.6, which is going to go in the negative. Don't believe there's going to be a positive PE on this company this year. And just taking a quick peek at their balance sheet before I get into the shares sold here, they have cash and cash equivalents of about $518 million going into the end of 2019, but they do not have the capital to sustain that. $518 million on a company that's burning through over $1 billion a month is not going to sustain on that. So they had to come up with some interesting ways to come up with some capital to survive. So not only did they take on debt, they did whatever they could to get the debt they required, they also sold a massive chunk of shares. They actually sold a massive chunk of shares. They had actually 71 million shares, guys, at an average sell price of about $8 a share. So if you wanted to know who sold Carnival off, well, Carnival sold Carnival off. And which, again, I think is an appropriate step for a company that's really burning the government and doesn't want to have to ask the government for bailouts because they don't pay taxes. They sell everything tax-free because they're in international water. It might be making it a really fishy company. Like that, you like those play on words here, guys, that I'm using. But this is probably a better thing for them, if I'm being honest, and it might even be better for the shareholders because this company does some really weird stuff to basically make you a lot of money as a shareholder. So, I mean, yeah, they weren't overcapitalized. None of these companies were. None of the airlines were. There were a lot of companies that really stretched themselves, not realizing they might have to shut down for a couple of months, leading them into a bankruptcy. But if we scroll into some of the articles, they do clarify a lot of this. The world's biggest cruise companies are unlikely to go bankrupt even if cruising doesn't resume for many months, says a top Wall Street analyst. Who's this top Wall Street analyst? Leisure analyst Harry Curtis of Instanet on Tuesday said the three publicly traded companies that dominate the cruise world, Carnival Corp, Royal Caribbean Cruise, and Norwegian Cruise and Line Holdings, have enough liquidity and borrowing capacity to survive the near zero revenue into the first quarter of 2021. So you're going to see some positive analysts report, even though this company is going to be burning through billions of dollars with a good chance that this company is going to take years to recover. And when we get into listening to the CEO in a sec, you're going to find a lot of odd surprises because, like I said, the CEOs do everything they can to disassociate from the problem at hand. And a lot of you might be thinking I'm crude saying these things are floating petri dishes, but they just are. It's just a fact of reality at this point. Here's an article that kind of justifies a lot of this. Of course, the ultimate fate of Carnival and the rest of the cruise industry depends on how long the pandemic lasts. And even if the companies survive, it could take years for them to recover. It wouldn't surprise me to see the industry redrawn in some ways, said Ross Klein, a sociologist, which I don't know what that has to do with pandemics, at a Memorial University of Newfoundland who studies cruising. So what is a sociologist doing in the cruise industry? Perhaps some companies disappearing, others being taken over, seeing ships being retired. In February, cruise ships became an early symbol of how rapid the CV could spread in confined spaces. When more than 700 passengers on Diamond Princess became infected as the ship idled off Japan, as social distancing grew more common in February and early March among the first activities Americans started avoiding. There's a glooming feeling and morale around the cruise ships right now, which is probably going to lead them into a recovery that's going to take a little longer than most people would expect. I still think the airlines are going to come back a lot faster, but let's listen to the CEO to see if he can change my heart and my mind about this company.
You all did know that there were multiple people on a number of your ships who had this virus. You knew that it was spreading, and yet you continued to offer cruises and even deals, discounts on packages. When you look back at it, was it a mistake to do that?
I don't think so, because if you look at the actual number of cases, cruise ships are not a source for coronavirus. We have hundreds of cruise ships out there. Very few had cases.
It's not a source, it's just the petri dish, all right?
On them, and the one that had the most cases was very early on when no one understood hardly anything.
I think the idea that the cruise ships aren't a source of spread is a bit counterintuitive, right? Because you're on a ship, you're swimming with people, you're eating together, gambling, playing sports, all in this very compact space. So talk me through that a bit.
But a cruise ship is not a theater. It is not a arena. It's more like Central Park. There's lots of natural social distancing. The ships are large. People are not always gathered and clumped together.
But there are lots of gatherings, right? Like I said, people eat at buffets. They go swimming together. There's dancing. There's sports. There's lots of communal gatherings. It's not just one theater. It seems like it's a lot of theaters.
Yeah. There's lots of social interaction. Number one, it manifests. You identify people get sick. There's a medical clinic on board. We isolate, okay? And so, in effect, you control the spread. Whereas when you're in a restaurant, or you're in a public library, in a school, that does not happen. And so all I'm saying.
I don't even know where to start with this, guys. How do you try and disassociate from a cruise ship compared to like Central Park, a restaurant, a library, considering this is a compact ship with thousands of people on it stuck out at sea where you're constantly brushing up and engaging with others. Like, to try and disassociate yourself from the problem at hand, I think is not the best approach. And this is the only interview I found where this guy actually hammers these questions into him. I would just be trying to find ways to hit this kind of head heavy on and maybe start focusing on the exact problems at hand. Like, how did so many people get sick? And can we do other things avoiding just sanitization? Maybe start reusing the ventilation systems, or just something else that is going to show that you're trying to resolve the problems at hand, not in the same way everybody else is, because they had to shut libraries down. They had to shut restaurants down. Parks are shut down. And you're trying to be like, our cruise lines don't really need to be shut down, It's not the biggest deal in the world. We're actually not the petri dishes of the world. And it's just, like I said, it's a hard thing to gauge out of the beginning here, but I just feel like if you're a CEO of a company going through this, you need to be on the front line. You need to be hitting this real heavy on. For instance, let's talk about how the governments are handling this. They're not sugarcoating any of this. And in Canada here, they already told us, look, we're going to try and get the curve down as low as possible, but we will be dealing with this until they come up with a vaccine. So don't expect a normality to life for any time relatively soon. We're going to try and, get you back into a pace, but we can't rush this because we're going to start seeing small influxes of people getting this in perpetuity for a little bit longer. And God knows China lies about those numbers. So let's listen to one more where the CEO actually addresses team members. And I kind of just took a segment from this. So let's just take a listen.
They know we've lived through challenging times, and we no doubt will again. And we know that one day this too will pass, and we'll be back to thinking about what we're having for dinner tonight or where we're going to take the kids on vacation this summer. Right now, though, the negative thoughts of others around you, including the constant alarmist talk by the media, may feel overwhelming or even depressing. And I'll ask one thing of all of you. Step back, take a moment, breathe, reflect for some perspective. There are also positive signs on the horizon. It's encouraging that in the last few days, the number of new COVID-19 cases in China have been minimal.
Okay, I just the music is too much for me here. It's so beautiful, but the problem is like this guy is just. Let's not talk about the negativity. Let's focus on the good news. People getting better. China's getting better. Like, everything he's mentioning isn't stuff that makes me feel better, if I'm being honest. But let's just keep listening.
Of Carnival Corporation, one question often gets asked: what keeps me up at night? And I always try to tell a little silly joke about the latest TV show I was watching or something like that. But then my real answer would be, is people being afraid to travel. And unfortunately, that's the situation we find ourselves in right now. Fear is the true virus. It's fear that is truly contagious. And I ask all of you not to fall victim to fear. Don't let fear overwhelm you. Let's always lift each other up. Be grateful that we live in a time where people want to be together. And when this all passes over, and it will, my hope is that we'll be proud of how we weathered this storm, not by panicking or turning away from each other, but by being vigilant and aware leaders in our industry and as citizens of our world. As in my previous video, I stated that we were absolutely committed to your safety and livelihood, and I can assure you we will do everything in our power to honor that commitment.
I don't want to make too much fun of the guy here, though, but like I said, I wish he would hit some more of the problems head on. He kind of almost sounds like a president, follows the script. We can't say any certain things, but heck, we undercapitalize ourselves for any serious dilemmas. We have to take on a massive amount of debt. And remember all those share buybacks we did over the years? Sorry, shareholders, we're going to sell those to survive. So enjoy losing your dividend and watching your stock drop by 80%. Like, I get the idea that we don't need to overfear here, guys, but fear is what's going to keep you alive. We have fear for a reason, not to the point of paranoia and schizophrenia, but the fear of, keeping your hands clean, not going out, following the government guidelines, and not preparing for your next bloody cruise ship trip is probably going to be the likely future we're going to see. Considering I can get an incredible deal on a cruise ship coming June 30th, that is a lot sooner than I'd like it to be, and I don't want to get stuck on a floating petri dish. And if there's something that really bad could come around the corner here, is if they do open up these cruises and they don't mitigate things properly. And one of the biggest issues was the air ventilation on these things, because if you breathe in or cough in, apparently it just gets sucked through the ship? I mean, things like that are what I want a CEO to address. I love the fact that that one interviewer was so heavy, hard hitting on him, but that's what you need. You need somebody to answer the hard questions. And the fact of the reality is he's coddling to shareholders. He's a little harsh here, but if I'm being honest, this is a company that already doesn't abide by tax governing laws. They do everything they can to work employees longer hours, pay them less than they have to. This is a company that goes above and beyond to make shareholders money in the most half legal, corruptive ways possible. And a lot of investors I watch on YouTube fairly undervalue that information, and they don't address it as very prophetically as I'm trying to do now. Is prophetically a word? Prophetically? I don't know. What you guys get what I'm talking about here, right? But am I going to be buying this stock, guys? I find it unbelievably attractive at these levels. And I know I've been battering this whole video, and if I had to pick stocks, I think I would pick airlines over the cruise lines. But do I think they're severely undervalued? Yes, absolutely, considering you can buy these cruise ships at almost their base bottom prices right now. And at some point or another, I don't know when, yes, I think cruises are going to become very popular again. People do enjoy them, but until they become less of a floating petri dish and more of a party good time where I can come home without infecting the entire world, it's just not going to be a stock that's going to perform well. And if I'm going to put a time horizon on this, guys, until we get the vaccine, until people kind of clean their minds out of this horrible news, don't expect a quick return around. It's just not going to happen. I mean, you're not going to be getting a dividend anytime soon. The fact that the company's pressuring so hard to try and stay on the good side of the government while also trying to book cruises as early as they can, I think is rushing things a little bit too fast, which could end up causing future issues. There's a lot of things you need to be aware of. If I'm being 100% honest, I kind of compare this the same way I do to the MJ sector. When the MJ sector started showing signs of real problems, what you want to do is just wait. Nobody says you have to jump into this today. Wait till it starts turning around. Wait till sales start getting good, and you might pay a premium to get into this company, but that premium you're going to pay in is going to save you a long haul of pain, no paychecks, and really unreassuring messages, not knowing where the future lies. When you can just go ahead and buy a bank stock that's on a major discount right now, get a 6 or 7% yield, which they're still paying out, and heck, maybe even take the dividends off those companies and sink them into Carnival Cruise, sink them into Delta Airlines. I just want to help you avoid as much risk as possible and look at these things from a multitude of perspectives. Leading me into, I want to know what you guys think about this stock in the comment section below. I tried to have a little bit of fun with this one today just to mix it up, and don't hate me too much. Every time I talk negatively about a company, I get a lot of heat, but there's too much positivity around people buying into this stock, and I wanted to give you the other side of the perspective, and it's just fascinating stuff going on here, guys. Stay safe, stay cool, and most of all, stay awesome. I'll catch you tomorrow, guys.